Hi everybody, my name is daniellanctot. I'm an art therapist. I currently work in Chicago at a community counseling center called Jewish Child and Family Services. And my presentation today is about participatory video. It's called Roll Camera, Camera Roll, considering the interplay between participatory video practices and tenets of art therapy. I'm going to go into a couple things in this presentation. I'll be showing examples of the work I've done with international participatory video projects from a number of years ago. Then, as the presentation progresses, I'll be tying in what art therapy looks like in relation to participatory video. So basically, I'll have some video clips to show, along with slides with quotes that I gleaned from material that I've found pertinent and helpful. But as a preface to everything, the participatory video projects I'm presenting today are from work that I did internationally. I've also done some work in the US in terms of participatory video projects, but that was mainly with wards of the state, so I can't really show that stuff. Anyway, a note that I would like to make is that in doing international work, I think there are a lot of complications in terms of power dynamics, in terms of coming in as a Westerner, and in my case, coming in as a white male. In essence, when working internationally, there are some added challenges and considerations to doing participatory video work or doing art therapy interventions for that matter. So those things are issues that I'd like to touch on during the presentation, but I just wanted to plant that tidbit in your mind from the beginning. So the first slide I'm going to show is actually not a participatory video project, but it was the first film that I did in relation to documentary and human rights. This film was called Gypsy Blood, the Roma, Ashkali, and Egyptian IDPs of Mitrovica, Kosovo. The reason I'm touching on this is more regarding what this project taught me and how it has since informed the practice that I want to take as a filmmaker. This film was very much a traditional human rights documentary, a cry for help type of thing. We sent it out to journalists, to people in power, to the European Parliament, to international film festivals. The film's subjects were struggling with lead poisoning because of being in a UN-run camp in close proximity to a slag heap where they do a lot of mining for heavy metals. So it was a really sad story, people suffering from off-the-charts lead poisoning and neglect from the local and international communities. I went in there with a translator and with the facilitation of a local nonprofit organization, but I was really swooping in there for 3 weeks making this film and then swooping right back out. And that didn't sit well with me. I wanted to be able to form relationships with the people I was filming. I wanted to be able to work in collaboration. It didn't leave me with a great feeling. So I'm going to kind of reference that throughout the presentation, looking at the difference between doing documentary and then what participatory video looks like, which is more grounded in tenets similar to art therapy. So this is a quote I like about documentary. Though bodily and ethically absent, the filmmaker retains the controlling voice, and the subject of the film becomes displaced into a mythic realm of reductive, essentialized stereotype, most commonly romantic hero or powerless victim. So this really talks about the power relationship and how amplified that is for many documentaries, especially people who are behind the camera and behind the scenes, but very much in control of what the narrative is going to look like in the end. So, without further ado, let's look at what participatory video is. I'm going to start by showing a graphic that I stole off of someone else's website. I think this kind of encapsulates a lot of what the work cycle of participatory video looks like. Participatory video basically is working with a community, or it could be an individual, thinking about what the story is that they want to tell and how they can take ownership of their story and have the agency to tell it themselves. So the top right is usually where you start, skills development. Could be teaching in-depth filmmaking techniques, but usually for participatory video, it's the process that is much more important than the product. So basically learning how to record video and some basics. A lot of times these days, many people are already familiar with the basics of video and they don't need to be trained. But doing some skills development, doing some planning, it could be storyboarding, could be thinking about how am I going to tell this story, who are other people I want to involve in the story, how are we going to do these interviews or other parts. Then there's the production part of the chart, which is kind of self-explanatory, taking the video. Then post-production, editing. In participatory video, I find it very, very crucial to do the editing together with the community. So not only do I have someone who's shooting their own footage, but when they're handing it off to a computer, we're sitting down together. Community screenings can kind of go in different configurations, maybe showing something to the community and then thinking about how to tweak this or refilm parts. I'm going to get to some case studies that will make this graphic come to life a bit more, but this is a useful point of reference. Also, this quote from Lunch and Lunch sums things up well. Participatory video is a set of techniques to involve a group or community in shaping and creating their own film. The idea behind this is that making a video is easy and accessible, and is a great way of bringing people together to explore issues, voice concerns, or simply to be creative and tell stories. Documentary films are often expected to meet stringent aesthetic standards and are usually made with a larger audience in mind. The PV process, on the other hand, is less concerned with appearance than with content. This maybe begins to speak towards some of those parallels of art therapy and participatory video, especially this idea of elevating process, how that seems like a common ground. One last quote for a while, at least I promise. This is just too good though. The usual way of documentary filmmaking was a patriarchal and individualistic one in which the filmmaker was external to the problem. The collective way of filmmaking is more feminist, allowing for different perspectives and relationships in the filmmaking process. Before showing some of my participatory video projects, I do want to give a brief history on the origin of participatory video. This is a really cool project that was done from 1967 to 1968 on Fogo Island in Canada. Basically, this island community was going to be relocated to the mainland, and people from the community were really up in arms about it and saying, "We want to stay here. This is where our livelihoods are. This is where our traditions are." The National Film Board of Canada created this program called Challenge for Change, and they called this the Fogo Island Communication Experiment. It was really groundbreaking at the time. The filmmakers came in, met with people from the community, learned from the community in terms of what are their concerns and what is the narrative they want to communicate to people in positions of authority who are determining their fate. And then this process of filming and ensuing screenings created a feedback loop between the Fogo community and the people in power. By the way, all these films are on the website for the National Film Board of Canada, so that's a pretty cool resource to check out. The particular film clip that's playing in the background now is about children of Fogo Island, a day in the life of what their traditions and customs looked like. Anyway, this project, the Fogo Island Communication Experiment, is generally agreed upon as the starting point for participatory video some 50 or so years ago. There have been many permutations on participatory video since then. I'm going to show some of the work that I did in collaboration with communities in Cambodia during my time of living there for 4 years. The first project I'm going to show is a project related to Cambodian villages being displaced or adversely affected by pending construction of a dam. I'm going to pull up a graphic to show how and where this Lower Saison Dam was proposed at the time of the video. Anyway, I met with 5 different villages to get their feedback about the dam. I'm going to show a couple segments of this, just 5 minutes overall, and include the opening scene which has a boy singing a poem about what the river means to him. And then just show a little clip in terms of what people wanted to make for their video. Again, this was me coming in with a local nonprofit, asking what are your issues, how do you want to convey your issues, and then people from the community taking the camera and doing the filmmaking in the way that they wanted to do it. So this turned out to be a very direct process, with lots of talking heads, in terms of we want to say this to the government, we want to say this to the dam company. Anyway, let's take a quick look.
Chumno tole re tam khol rong wom chik chol nung ora Rompon li chan sen lướt la som ram ruk ka nghe say tam ruk chiết tiền rê trai lơ hạ tra căn bị chấm ไล่แถลงเลิกหมอกส้มแดงจุนเรื่องเคลยปีต้นเล่ตุนนึ่งไตรประจีมีดมีแถเดียซาต้นเล่เมียนปลอกผมตึกโหมันชมปรังอุษาโหตามธรรมจีตอย่างอจาประเจียบอะไรประเจียบประเจียบเกลียวคลาแสนมุตนังมุตนะอ๋อเฮ้ย
ยมบาดชมัวลอนทินากรในภูมิพลุกคุมพลุกสรุปเซซานคัดสตึงแตงวิดีโอกำรานี่ยมบาดทอดโดยตัวใดว่ายมบาดได้เตะตรงตัวหนึ่งบัดสัมเพะหรือว่าโลกมีคุมมีภูมิรวมแตงสหกุมปัญหาการโปรยบารมปีการสร้างสองตุนบวรีกิสนี
ยมจังเยเรื่องตนบนั่งเกตุบยังเต้าวันเล็กสระเล็กภูมิเล็กเตี้ยเล็กสบายให้เจียจนนั่งนั่งตนเอากลายนาติดวิอัดเมียนกลายเนอให้กิทาเลิกตอนเนอตรอยมาค้างอีนายในเนอเลตัวเลโกอัดเมียนตักอัดเมียนไอ
ไปกับจังหมอยมก็มันจังเมียนกาลำบะเวทนีเตอกลายเซนตีเต้ผมจังรูเนอกลายภูมิกับนาภูมิตะได้แล้วนั่งอาจจะให้ขยมสนมโปมันจังเอาเก่าเต้ใครเมียนกาลำบะยมเตอไงมุกตีนึง
กิดะเนอเอากิเทอเนอตนบเนอเซซานปีหนึ่งปีบะมันเต้นอันหนึ่งตัวใบโรเตรมวยกอดบ้านเบอร์ยิงบ้านเตรบ้านเต็มมวยปีหนึ่งถ้าไม่กรุษายิงชีบ้านกรุบกรอน
บ้านยืงชาคุมภูมิเชียงชายเนี่ยนาตรกาตนุบเลิกได้เนี่ยนามุนตรกาตนุบเลิกได้บ้านยืงเอาคุณยืงจะดับตึกออกเนี่ย
So, this Lower Sesan 2 dam project is similar to the Fogo Island process in that the community's direct intent was to share their concerns with people in power, to share concerns because they felt like they're not being heard or acknowledged. In Cambodia, it's very hard to have that sense of civil society to have everyone's voice heard. The political climate and reckless development has made life difficult for many communities. Anyway, I'm not here to completely go off on Cambodia, so back to the film. One thing that we did with this video was that representatives from participating communities came to the capital city and presented their film at the Environmental Film Festival and handed out free DVDs of their film in the street. This was in 2009, so before YouTube was completely huge, at least in Cambodia. And then community members went directly to different governmental ministries and delivered their film. Did it work? Well, the dam was still built and has been a disaster since its construction. And unfortunately, that's been a theme for many of the human rights focused projects I've been involved in, even the one in Kosovo, where a film and a story gets out and then nothing changes or things get worse. So that is a bit depressing, when people in power continue to oppress marginalized communities. Anyway, the next film project is a little different. Whereas I did the Sesan 2 dam project in a couple months, this one was with a community that I worked with for 3.5 years called Gong Yu. They're an indigenous Jurai community in northeastern Cambodia, so different than the Khmer majority ethnic group. People from Jurai communities have their own indigenous language and culture. This is a clip from BBC of some coverage of their story and how they lost traditional farmland to a rubber company owned by people with connections to the government. Gong Yu's story has been covered in lots of different ways, but the community never really had an opportunity to tell the story for themselves. So again, I worked, and I should say for all these films, I think it's important to note that I worked in partnership with local nonprofits who had established relationships with the community. I think that was really important to work in collaboration. So for this Gong Yu video, we came in again, and it was an open dialogue in terms of what kind of video do you want to make? What do you want to talk about? And they said, we really want to tell our story to our neighbors. We want our story to be a story about how we were tricked out of losing our land, how people cheated us, how local authorities were bribed and given money so they would take our indigenous land from us, and we want this to be a story that can be something for other communities to learn from, so that it doesn't happen to them. So basically there were two different steps to this film. One was a role-play video that the community made. That role-play video ended up being 25 minutes long after various edits were done in collaboration with the community. For the role-play, people from Gongyu played different parts. Someone played the wealthy person from Phnom Penh who came in to take their land. Some people played the corrupt local authorities. So this next clip is going to have some of that role-play video and also some of the video that was then developed into an international documentary that was for a broader audience that showed the making behind the video and gave a bit more context for people not in the neighboring communities. So here's another 5-minute clip.
Pas lao có xin cắt tao với ôn này mà nuôi tim lôi ra vậy giờ ta nó còn thọ cắt tao với ôn nuôi ha nên ba ta thì thọ như ta là kem bởi nhom họ bị bạ bạ đó lung ta hết nên ta hao lao ra ba lao nên mà ngại chấm đành thôn nên còn hai nên nhà hào lao hai còn hai hào hụi hai tao lên ai trong bàn tay còn hai nên nhom họ bật cho vậy mới nên ba lung nên mới thọ hai lo hai lao hai giờ nó nhom mới thọ vót như cái nắp táp người ta chưa.
So this part is the role play. You're going to see the local authorities who are corrupt and tricking the village.
Mười kia gai đi lon đi cái này mong lon buông này giờ đi ngôn gai này giờ thì cuối gần đó tao mòn giờ gần thì một cuối gần đó tao mòn lon nên bây giờ là khai bây giờ là chưa có bây giờ là không có tuyệt lon nên tuyệt cái này mong trong đây đây hồn sen tuyệt cho han tại lê tại ngan thì cuối gần tao mòn ở cuối cái tao lon rót lại lon rót này mình này họ này họ quê đằng cha nhưng ta thì ngã ta có cái câu vườn nó quay vườn tham luôn núi trên mình lại chọc như tại ngàn mình tha trao mà nó học quê ta na này bông phi bông nợ mà ngã na này mười này mình chạm phèo họ mười quê mẹ con mét bông phi này quê ngã bò chỉ khi quê gần tao còn chỉ khi mà quê gần tao còn lần rọt nhưng khi vui mà thì kiểu vui là được trái đó lần mỗi lần ta chiên lần cho coi kia ga ông mò là hàng bông bữa ông mò lại giờ tàu đôi cho lại lần lượt thằng con tàu ấy boy biết họ gần lại tàu cái con lên vừa không để nó lúc mà thọt là chưa không bao giờ nên cho mà ép lại bao mà trong tàu tầm camera tàu làm nên họ nạp lại lô cái ép cắt nó vừa ôm mà cắt to chưa này nạp tạp cho ta tôm hình chấm lấy này còn hai nên ép lại bao còn hai nhiệt lao hay còn hai nhom lô hay cho nên cho ta bị tôm hình này mới nạp lại mà ép lô chát ép ngang tôm bọt ta ép lên là đắp ép lên là đắp đó ba lo về bằng hai vừa o này bằng hai vừa tranh chẳng bỏ tim luôn mà bằng hai vừa o này tôm sừng chát ta tôm lúc này mình chẳng bỏ đừng mới bằng hai vừa o một lúc tim lo chát chẳng chẳng bỏ ba lo nên là mới tha nên những cái do là chừng đánh mà con nên nhẹ nên hình dạ là mới tha nên cả ăn phút ơi giờ lại nhiều bỏ ta coi tha nên tập về không nhiều ta coi nên phải cho lại xem kỹ nhau giờ lại càng đau như xong đây tùa xem thôi xong đây tùa xem này nhiều chiên thạp lại tầm cùng dụ này
có của mình là vào năm 10 ngạ bộ pay này 10 ngạ già ngạ vàng của mình nào chơi nằm ngoài nằm cả bộ bữa như vậyเลยxe đuổi ô này ngạ 10 này 10 thọ gạ ya 10 bồn bái gần 10 cái 10 thọt của 10 vạch ơi nọ này 10 nạ này 10 ép video nắp cả nhiều bổ lại nó bộ pay này mới ngạ pay này mới gai mới này nên mới mà vậy cho mới kha đi bị dài là bởi mới cũng đến nông mới đừng mình to ngoài nắp cả là bao nhiêu mới đồ hội này gai bài mới đồ hội này mới đồ hội tàu nhạc la mới bắt vào thầu pay này mới cái nhạc có dạng vàng mới cái nhạcมันเลยtiếp ngạ hoa là gai mới cái nhạcมันnhư giờ nên vậy mới bằng ngạ là con tao nhạc la vậy là nuôi cái nhạc mình
So now I'm going to talk a little bit about art therapy, because I should note that I didn't even know what art therapy was at the time of doing these videos. This was before I went to school at the School of the Art Institute to study art therapy. But I think that being in Cambodia with a wife who's a social worker helped contextualize work in a way of doing no harm, doing work in a way that's going to be respectful of people, and also meeting people where they're at instead of coming in and imposing my own agenda. Of course, everyone has some kind of agenda no matter what, so I can't purport to being a blank slate, but I did the best that I could to respect what people's wishes were and also be cognizant of the power differentials at play. Anyway, there's two main points that I want to draw from art therapy literature, this idea of witness and this idea of facilitation. Pat Allen speaks to the idea of being a witness. In referencing to the art therapist, Allen notes, "She herself has no agenda, no preferred outcome, but the highest good for all involved. She does not come to change things, but to get to know them. She does this by creating images in response to her experience of the conversations around her." So in this sense, for working with Gong Yu in particular, there was an aspect of me being a witness to their narrative. Yes, I was facilitating their participatory video project, but I was also doing some of my own filming. Especially as they got to know me more and more, they wanted me to document portions of their lives as well. So we kind of took turns behind the camera, which made for an interesting dynamic as things went along. Anyway, art therapy literature also speaks to the idea of facilitation. This is from some authors who were involved in participatory process. As facilitators, who were outsiders being invited in, the group norms demanded our continuous giving over of planning, agenda setting, and moment-to-moment decision-making that created open spaces for all co-researchers to adapt creative art therapy to their local cultural practices. In this sense, we facilitators function like a third hand, allowing the community to use us much as they would an art material, to shape and be shaped in whatever direction was needed to express the community's social realities and to act on its needs. So I really like this idea of a third hand and this idea of being utilized as an art material. That's something that I think in particular the final clip that I show relates to. So the final clip I want to show is from an hour-long documentary that I produced about sexual abuse of boys and men in Cambodia. The impetus for this project was there's a lack of understanding in Cambodia about sexual abuse in general, but particularly when it comes to boys. People don't even believe that it happens to boys at all. Even though research has shown that 1 in 3 or 1 in 4 girls experience sexual abuse in their lifetime, and 1 in 6 boys do, there's this sense of disconnect, and a sense that boys are strong, or that if something does happen to a boy, it's not a big deal, or it's not going to hurt them. The participatory video part was working with a group of young people to develop a music video that was going to go at the end of this documentary. So they wrote the lyrics, came up with the concept, shot a lot of the footage, and then wanted me to shoot some of the footage too, and we made this video together called I Will Believe. We used a lot of storyboarding to start. Storyboarding is like planning a movie in the form of a comic strip. This was really helpful for the kids to be able to collaboratively map out what they wanted the film to look like, as it might have been more challenging for them to do that just by talking. They gathered around poster board and were scribbling things on it. It kind of looks like this, and you'll see some of that storyboard at the very beginning of this clip. The full 6.5-minute music video is on YouTube. I'll just show a selection of it now.
ស្រីពីព្រោះក្មេងប្រុសត្រូវរឹងមាំយើងត្រូវក្លាហានដូច្នេះយើងត្រូវរក្សារឿងនេះតាមម្នាក់ឯងកុំបារម្ភអីយើងនឹងជួយឯងយើងនឹងជឿជាក់ឯងថ្ងៃណារបស់ឯងខ្ញុំនឹងជួយរក្សាឯងកុំមានការខ្វះអៀនអីវាមិនមែនជាកង្វល់របស់ឯងទេកុំបារម្ភអីខ្ញុំនឹងជួយឯងខ្ញុំនឹងជឿជាក់ឯងថ្ងៃណារបស់ឯងខ្ញុំនឹងជួយរក្សាឯងកុំមានការខ្វះអៀនអីវាមិនមែនជាកង្វល់របស់ឯងទេ
សូមជម្រាបសួរបងប្អូនពុកម៉ែតាយាយតើធ្វើយ៉ាងណាដើម្បីជួយដល់អ្នកជនរងគ្រោះបើមិនដឹងទេខ្ញុំសូមរៀបរាប់ឲ្យស្ដាប់សូមលោកចាំស្ដាប់សារស័ព្ទខ្ញុំដូចតទៅជឿបើសិនក្មេងប្រុសនិយាយហើយសូមគិតថាពួកគេនេះណាក៏យកបានដែរបងប្អូនពុកម៉ែគួរតែគាំទ្រនិងលើកទឹកចិត្តតែកុំភ្លេចណារក្សាការសម្ងាត់គួរកុំភ្លេចខ្លួនដល់ក្តីស្រឡាញ់ឲ្យបានពេញលេញដល់ក្មេងប្រុសផងគ្រួសារចងចាំកុំស្ដីបន្តព្រោះមិនជាកំហុសរបស់គេទេយើងត្រូវលើកស្ទួយគួរកុំរើសអើងដល់ក្មេងប្រុសទៀតព្រោះគេជាជនរងគ្រោះដែលបានរងលោភបំពានទៅលើរាងកាយនិងផ្លូវចិត្តសូមលោកប៉ូលីសជួយការពារនិងរកយុត្តិធម៌ក្មេងប្រុសផងជាចុងក្រោយនេះបើបងប្អូនបានឮហើយគួរតែគុំនៅកូនតើយរួមគ្នាការពារក្មេងប្រុសទាំងស្រីទាំងប្រុសក៏អាចរងគ្រោះបានដែរ
So yeah, all those lyrics from the video were written by the participants and the concepts were by the participants as well. The first video with the younger children was more participatory in nature, whereas the second video with the older guy was a project where he picked out the locations for the music video but wanted me to film it for him. And I think this speaks a bit to the nature of the work I've shown so far, where the process is adapted based on the needs and desires of the participants. So we've seen the Dam video where the participants organized and filmed themselves, the Gong Yu video where the community made a role-play video and then provided me with opportunities to take video as well, and finally the music video, which was half participatory and the other half a collaborative piece that I shot. There are some cut and dry methods for doing participatory video, but I found that a fluid process worked in a lot of cases for me. Were there things that I wish I would have done differently? Of course. And along those lines, I want to introduce some critical thinking about participatory video in conclusion. Here's a great quote. Like any participatory process, participatory video has many pitfalls. It is all too easy to raise people's expectations, only to see their dreams and ideas go nowhere. Lack of transparency, lack of follow-up, unkept or unreasonable promises will foster disillusionment. Going back to Gong Yu, we had done a series of different videos by the time that I had left to go back to the US. Before leaving, I networked with a local nonprofit to see if they would be able to provide support for Gong Yu if the community wanted to make future films. But, to make a long story short, when I went back for the first time to visit Cambodia 2 years ago, Gong Yu village was no longer making videos. And it was an awful feeling to reflect on all the time we had invested together, and then Gong Yu was no longer pursuing video work. I'm not completely clear what all happened, but I feel some responsibility that things didn't continue. Along those lines, here are some guiding questions of considerations to take before undertaking a participatory video project from the Handbook of Participatory Video. Here's a selection of some of those questions that I like the best. How can a project continue after the equipment and expertise of the filmmaker is withdrawn? What kind of effect and what kind of change does the community expect from the project, and is this going to be a good long-term thing for the community? Which different groups or interests make up the community, and who is excluded by this particular formation and formulation of community? What kind of ethical responsibilities exist among the participants, and what is the best practice for protecting them from harm, from re-victimization, and/or from becoming stereotyped? How does one measure and evaluate the impact of the project and the media intervention on the community? How much actual control over the process do the community and individual interests within it have? Finally, would the community be better off without the intervention? This is a lot to chew on, and I think these questions speak to art therapy interventions as well. Along the lines of critical thought, I want to leave you with one final quote that considers cross-cultural art therapy. This is from a 2002 article by Dan Hokoi, which I think speaks to a question that's really stuck to me like a TV glitch. Hokoi states, if art therapy, or participatory video, in our case I'm adding that in, does not constitute a naturally occurring concept in another culture, what implications, therapeutic and ethical, does its application have in that culture? Does the introduction of art therapy serve in any way to undermine pre-existing forms of transformation? Does it supplant any indigenous or local healing traditions that are critical for cultural integrity and community identity? Can it serve as another tool of Euro-American enculturation and colonization? Well, yikes. That brings up a much bigger conversation that could be a whole conference in and of itself. Truthfully, I would have done some things differently if I had it all to do over again, but I will say that the communities I worked with were genuinely intrigued and enthused about making films. They knew what the concept of video was. Even rural villages had seen Cambodian karaoke videos, for better or for worse, and were energized to try the medium and do something new. My work with them can probably be best summed up by saying it was complex, with a lot of layers to be thinking through and holding. There's no denying that. Anyway, I could keep rambling on forever, and I think I should wrap things up, especially since I don't have any more video to show you all. If you do want to see the whole films that I showed clips from, you can check out my YouTube channel. I especially recommend the 30-minute Land Loss, Culture Loss documentary that Gongyu Village and I directed together. Other recommendations before I go are to check out the excellent free resources online that help in developing participatory video projects. InsightShare is the leader in PV, and Chris Lunch has a TED Talk called This Is Not a Video Camera that is excellent. Their website also has the Handbook for Participatory Video, which is free. The right side of this slide shows Witness, who do more teaching human rights video work. Their Video for Change book is free online and an awesome resource for learning video making basics. And also, here's my works cited list. I could have done many, many more quotes, but I reeled it in as much as possible. Finally, feel free to email me at daniellanctot@gmail.com with any questions or comments or other things you want to say. Thanks so much for listening, watching, and participating.